This one's good. Black on black crime doesn't exist. Do we have a violence issue in our community? That's a really good one.
Why do you think this one is good?
It's really good because it's spicy and it's going to get the people going. The black on black crime conversation is a tool used by white supremacists to market black people in a very specific way. Crime within racial communities is always higher than interracially. White on white crime is more than black on white crime. Black on black crime is higher than Asian on white crime. Like, people are more likely to commit crimes against people within their racial class. A lot of the times because they tend to live closer to each other. So to use black on black crime, it's usually a distraction tactic to ignore the systemic issues that face black people in the West mainly.
Okay, so you don't think we have a violence issue within our community?
I don't feel like it's inherently race based.
What is it based? Just human to human? It was just as violent towards each other like other races are towards each other.
Yeah, I don't think that black people are inherently violent. I feel like
Of course
because,
not.
yeah, and that's what the question is asked. Do we have a violence issue in our community?
Having a violence issue in a community and being inherently violent, is that the same for you?
Well, that's how this question is phrased to me because I feel like there is a there is potentially a crime issue in our community, but
Okay.
crime is directly linked to poverty,
Yeah.
and black people are statistically more likely to be impoverished, especially in the West.
Yes.
So they're more likely to commit crime, and within crime, there's violence. So I don't think it's inherently a black thing to be violent. I just think
It's a poverty thing to be violent.
it's a it's and I'm not saying all poor people commit crimes, but I'm just saying poor people are driven to crime more than people with means because they're a lot more desperate, and they're more likely to try and acquire means through violent ways. And I don't think that's an issue with the poor people. I think it's an issue with the disparity in wealth in the
Okay.
world.
So when some people like come out with like certain, well, the statistics can mean whatever, I guess, as well.
Because usually when people talk about black on black crime, they're and trying to bring it up as a point, it's usually a distraction
Yeah,
from something else.
they'd be like, oh, somebody will be talking about police brutality, and then
Yeah.
they'd be like, well, you guys are killing each other. But actually, a lot of black people make that point as well. It's like,
Yes.
why are you like? I had a lot of there's a lot of people in podcasts, even in the UK and everywhere, that'd be like, oh, yes, we talk about police officers killing us, but we are also killing each other at a high rate.
Yeah, and so do white
And
people. White
yeah.
people kill each other at a high rate as well. This is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
look, if you even if you look at wars like Russia against Ukraine, like what kind of like mass murder is that? That's white on white crime.
Yeah, and I honestly
Yeah.
feel like this links directly with respectability politics. Like, we've got to be good in front of the white people. Like, let's not be too violent in front of the white people. And I feel like it's whenever a black person brings that up, I feel like they're not really focusing on the actual problem. They're focused on what is being said to them. Fair enough. I'm not going to be completely ignorant and say that violence isn't a big part of a lot of our media. But I feel like that's just the case in a lot of things, and I don't feel like it's race based. I feel like, let's say, for example, hip hop, like we talked about before,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of violence within certain genres of hip hop, but it's because they experience a lot of violence because a lot of them are poor and they have to do certain crimes to make ends meet.
I get that. Like we had that whole conversation about hip hop before.
Yeah.
And I think what kind of place it also comes from often when people do talk about how there is a violence issue within the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly also the argument of someone that has grown up in impoverished like areas within like London or America and just knows how it feels like as a man probably. And I've experienced it as a woman between men, like going to a rave and then you can't even look anywhere. What are you looking at? And yes, there's no way I would not acknowledge the fact that this comes from like this is like a after effect or result of systematic racism and us being oppressed and coming from poor backgrounds in the West especially, and there's definitely a result of that. But I think when you in it, acknowledging where something is coming from doesn't mean to just act like there's nothing I can do to take myself out of the equation or to still see like an issue or still actively participate in a solution, because
Yeah.
it's like sometimes when people be like, oh yeah, but it's this and it's that, and you basically also saying like it's not our fault.
Like you don't
Yeah,
want to take accountability.
yeah, exactly. And then does it mean, but we still have to acknowledge the fact that when we just look in from the inside in and not just from the outside in, being in it, that there is an issue somewhere in a sense,
Yeah, so
without comparing ourselves to other communities. And that's why you see like Idris Elba at the moment, for example, doing like this knife crime campaign and talking about the violence within the community and the gang culture and violence within London and these things. And this is where you have so many activists in the Black community that wants to focus on young Black boys to channel their energy or to give them a better outlook in life, and if that in form of opportunities or workshops or whatnot. But if we all would just be there, yeah, well, this is not really our fault and it's because of oppression and there's no violence issue within the Black community, and that can also brush away something that still kind of exists. But calling it black on black crime, the term itself is racist actually. But that's why it says, do we have a violence issue? And then there is something going on. I mean, what do you want to call it?
I feel like there is a inherent bias against Black people. And when I say that, people usually think other races are biased towards Black people. But Black people are also biased towards Black people.
Yeah.
I am. A lot of us are, especially a lot of us who grew up in the West. I know if I'm walking down the street at night, and this is embarrassing to admit, but it's true. If I'm walking down the street at night, I see a white guy in a hoodie, and I see a Black guy in a hoodie, subconsciously, I will perceive the Black guy as more of a threat. Because of all of the media that I've taken in, all of the movies that I've seen, that's how we are depicted. And I feel like a lot of Black people have this unconscious bias, and a lot of white people have this unconscious bias. A lot of Asian people have this unconscious bias against Black people because of the media that we consume. So, and I feel like maybe Black people don't realize that we are also privy to those cognitive biases or those unconscious biases. So because of that perception of seeing that Black guy as a threat, I feel like a violent situation is more likely to occur. And that might also be a reason why this Black on Black crime thing is as exacerbated as it is, because Black people do have an unconscious bias against Black people. And I don't really feel like we know that.
Sorry, just always making sure. Good. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I agree with the unconscious bias part.
Like there was a show called 100. I think I've spoken to you about it. And they did a test on unconscious bias. And they had 100 people, all different races, all different ages and genders, at a shooting gallery. And they had, there was either someone who popped up with a gun or someone who popped up with a phone. And your task was to shoot the person who popped up with a gun, and you're not supposed to shoot people who popped up with the phone. And there was one kind of sequence that repeated itself in all 100 tests, and it was a white guy and a black guy. They both pop up with a phone, and it was to test. That was the only test inside the entire test. That was the test. It was, if you were going to shoot one of them, which one were you going to shoot?
Yeah.
And it made it even worse because the black guy that they had pop up was like the community manager. So he's the one, all of these 100 people saw him every single day. He's the one who made sure that they were all good. And a lot of them shot him. So and the white guy was a complete stranger. So even a black guy that you know, that you've seen every single day, you're more likely to, because obviously you're going to shoot the one that you perceive as a threat, i.e. the one you see with the gun. You're more likely to shoot a black guy that you know, especially when it's like an instant thing, because they just pop up and it's like instant. You're more likely to shoot a black guy that you know than a white guy that you've never seen before. And a lot of the participants were like crying. They were like, I can't believe I shot him, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Obviously they didn't actually shoot him, but a lot of them felt really emotional about it.
Yeah, because they don't even know their own kind of bias that they're unconsciously carrying around. I mean, it's when you say, I mean, I agree with you. I'm not saying, I agree, but with me personally, especially when it comes to this like walking down the road thing, I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
But maybe because I grew up in Vienna, and obviously because there is like such a tight African community, we would never do anything to each other. Like I knew when I was growing up, instantly kind of had that feeling if there's a random black person around, I'm safe. Because obviously I went through so much overt racism that was violent to the point where I was beaten up as a kid, by kids that were way older than me, like teenager to like primary school kids. So for me, if I walk on the road and I see a white guy in a hoodie and a black guy in a hoodie, 100% more scared about the white guy in the hoodie. Like that makes me nervous as fuck. But I'm also a woman. I think if I was a black man, it would be completely different, because walking down the road here, actually, because obviously I live in a hood area. So I remember many times when I come home late and I see like a group of black boys. Like so many times it happened that I'll be walking and then there would be like on the other side of the road, or like a group of black guys, young black boys. And then I would come across and then I would feel like, okay, not just that it's black boys, but it's a group of men. It's a dark, like you never know as a woman. But then so many times it happened that they're like moved. Oh, excuse me, miss, don't be scared. Like just keep on walking. Like don't, and always like so often like reassured me, like don't worry. Like I know this is intimidating, but don't worry. Or even to the point where around the corner, it actually didn't happen long ago, but there were like two boys like proper like almost like arguing, and one of the guys was like starting to get like super angry, and I was like turning into my road, and the guy was like in my way, and then he was like super angry with the guy, and he looked, he was like, oh, excuse me, miss, and he like moved to the side and kept on arguing. It's like, and that's how I see, like, obviously as a black man, it's a completely different story. But I'm just saying from my side, when I think about like rapists and stuff, I don't think like all these crazy rapists cut you up, like hide you in the basement. That's some white people shit. Like when it comes to, and I'm not saying black men can't be rapists. I'm just saying that the way my brain works, I'm actually like more scared of a white person than a black person.
Yeah, and this is why I said it's embarrassing, because I know if I thought about it consciously, a group of white men are more likely to be a threat to me than a group of black men. But I'm talking about an unconscious bias. This is something that you don't think about. This is something that happens instantly. And then your conscious takes over, and then you start to rationalize things. But when I was watching that TV show and the two guys popped up, and I thought to myself, which one would I have shot? I was like, I probably would have shot the black guy.
Really?
Yeah. And like, that was, when I watched that show, in that moment, I was like, I really understood this whole black on black crime conversation, because a lot of violent situations, they're not long. they usually take a couple seconds. They're very fast and very instantaneous. It's true.
But a lot of so sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of violent situations between black people, or let's say black men, can we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, are they based on two strangers? Or is that like usually involved in some, don't want to call it gang, but you know what I mean? Like more like, not gang, but more like people you already knew and there was an altercation. It's not like a stranger, like somebody random popping up. It has a story before. It's not a random thing. It has a pre-story, like somebody did that, and then all of a sudden it's not like just somebody popping up,
Yeah, I
you
understand
know?
that, but I would never be violent towards someone that I actually knew personally. It's more a case if I was I mean, I don't have any statistics to back this
Yeah.
up, but I assume a lot of fights happen on nights out, or like when drink
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
when drinking's involved. And just even though all of these biases are unconscious, they still influence the way that you act.
Yeah.
I do believe that especially men who grew up in the West,
Yeah.
and this might not be true because I don't
Mm.
have any stats, but I feel like there is an unconscious bias to perceive another black man as a little bit more of a threat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I think there's like a skeptic bar when he said, when a white man looks at my watch, I think he's trying to pay me a compliment. But when a black guy looks at my watch, I think he's trying to knock my confidence or something like that.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of situations like that where, and it's really sad, and it's really, as I said before, it's something that I'm consciously trying to unlearn, because as I said, as soon as I start to think about it, I'm like, white people are way more of a threat in general to me than black people are. But because of all of this gross white supremacist
Programming.
programming
Yeah.
that I'm under, because I grew up in the
Yeah.
UK, I have to now consciously unlearn all of these things. But I do feel like a lot of people, and this is something I've only learned a couple of years ago, a lot of people don't understand that they even have these biases. So they may act in ways towards other black men just because they feel like that's the way that they've acted, not knowing that it's actually that this is how insidious white supremacy is. It affects the oppressed people within their own community. It's not always white people oppressing you. The media that they've kind of
Yeah, it's like on
disseminated,
autopilot
yeah,
now.
it's
It's
like, all
like
right, cool, like
yeah,
we've done the
it's a
work, and now,
passive income for
yeah,
them now. It's
and
like,
now it's
oh,
just
it's
turning,
just yeah, we've done our bit. It's like you do
yeah,
the rest now. You take, yeah, it's crazy. So you think it? Oh yeah, no. I mean, we spoke about it the other day actually, and I thought there was such an interesting comment you made to that cab driver in Nigeria. It kind of stuck with me as well, and it's just like, and I talked about it with Mikel last week, and about how being black, and I don't care about the term now, talking about the political statement, I call it political
yeah,
really.
no, yeah, it's,
Blackness
yeah,
is something that was born in the West.
mm,
In Africa, you're not black, you're just a man. I'm
mm,
just a woman. There's just a child. The
mm.
whole idea of like playing this card game, oh, what do black children need the most? Black community this, black man that.
Show it to an African, they're
They're
gonna be
like, what do you mean? What are you
like,
talking about? Like, what do you mean black? Like, and
yeah,
it's all, and it took me to go there and and try and read the question. And what do black? And I was like, something wrong here. It just doesn't feel right. Like, why
yeah.
am I saying black? So you actually only become black once you come here. And then tell me the story about the cab driver in Nigeria.
So my driver, like my family's driver, he was talking to me about how he hates Nigeria and how like he wants to come to the UK because he knows it's going to be a lot better. And I asked him, I was like, how old are you? And he was like, I think he said anywhere like 40, 50, something like
Mm,
that. And I was like, obviously there are a lot of problems that you're going to face in Nigeria that you're not going to
mm.
have to deal with in the UK. But there are so many problems that you're not even equipped to deal with in the UK. Like, and I asked him, do you even know that you're black? And he was like, well, yeah, he understood that he was black. And I was like, have you ever been treated like you were black? And then he was like, I don't think so. And I was like, I am still trying to understand and pass through life being treated like a black man. And I've been treated like I was black my entire life. You think you're going to come to the UK at 40, 50 years old and be comfortable with this life-changing paradigm of being treated like you are a black person? There's these problems of being treated like you're black. They are so mentally distressing, especially in the UK, because it's so subtle. There's been times I thought I was losing my mind when I was around white people and being treated in certain ways. Especially in the UK, because it's so under the surface.
Listen,
you'll be like
you're going crazy.
You're going crazy. Yeah. So I was just like, yeah, like, even as I said before, I'm privileged to have lived in the UK because there's certain educations that I've got. Yeah. Public health is a lot better, XYZ. But there are problems that you are not even equipped with the knowledge to understand in terms of your racial identity that you're going to now have to deal with if you move to the UK. So just keep that in mind.
But I mean, unfortunately, if you probably look at the stats of like what people need to survive, like Maslow's, like this hierarchy of things.
Yeah.
But as a cab driver in Nigeria, you probably think you still, even if you list it out, you probably still have a better chance of like a successful life here. And that is so sad.
Honestly, though,
because if you look at the hierarchy of human needs, and then certain conditions, I'm not saying Nigeria is so poor and everything, but certain conditions of like the average Nigerian, you probably, if somebody listed it out to you, you're probably like, okay, I still rather be in the UK then.
Yeah, I'll take some racism if it means I can get fed and stuff like that. But
and fed, and also like the healthcare part, that's such a big thing.
Well, I'm not even sure if immigrants get free healthcare.
Yeah, but lots of good point.
Yeah, but on that point, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not something that happens consciously. Like, once certain needs are met, naturally you're going to
create new needs.
Yeah, you're going to want better for yourself. And then at the top of the pyramid is self-actualization. So that's at the very top. But you need to go through all of those steps. So eventually you're going to be fed. All right, so I kind of want a little bit more. Like, I want to be treated like a human being. I want to be, I want to be treated well. I want some sort of comfort. And that's where it kind of gets blocked. So I feel like, as I said, it's different problems that you're going to deal with everywhere. But he was talking about the UK like it was some sort of utopia.
I mean, it is like that.
It is like that.
That's what they think.
Yeah, when you're living life like that on a day to day.
Yeah.
But he did need, and again, speaking to him like that, as I was saying it, I was like, this black thing is really like a Western, because he was shocked. He was like, and as I was saying it to him, I was also shocked because I thought it wasn't going to go down like that. I thought he was going to say, like, obviously I've had experiences like this, or blah, 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 or like I've seen this somewhere or whatever. But his concept of blackness was so far away from mine. And that's why I'm starting to have issues with the term, because it is really a way of otherizing us. Like, black, especially in the UK, the US, black can mean not white. And for you to
like, it's just not what
it's just not white. And like, really, I mean, black and white people, they're the only people that refer to themselves as a color. And I feel like that's heavily because of like the slavery in the transatlantic slave trade in the US. But like, Asian people, they rarely ever call themselves brown. I know they sometimes do, but it's not as heavily used as when people call themselves black or white. And even in Asia, there's Chinese people, Japanese people who aren't as brown as like people from Bangladesh.
Yeah, but there's some serious racism there as well. Colorism, not racism, colorism. Asian people are proper colorists.
Yeah, but
they see color. They're not even, and they're not trying to play like they don't.
And why do you think that is?
Because of white supremacy as well.
Because of white supremacy, because of British colonialism in India.
A
lot of that came. This is what I'm saying. Even the colorism and the caste system that happened in places like India came from England. It came from British colonialism. So again, race is so Western. It's such a Western concept. Even far in the East, the places where colorism is touched the most were impacted by some sort of Western migration or some sort of Western programming or whatever the case is. Because they watch the same movies that we watch. They have the same media that we are privy to as well. Like that's America's second biggest export is their media. It goes everywhere. So like, yeah. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, no, I was just completely. You need to go. You do, isn't it? It's okay. I farmed you enough today.
I feel like we got some good content.
Yeah, we did. The only one thing I was going to say, though, you know what worries me, what just came to my mind in a way, and what kind of like, not worries me, maybe I'm thinking too far ahead, but I'm thinking about how we were talking the other day about how soon the term black, for example, is going to be a taboo word to say.
Or not soon.
It's starting to happen. Like,
said in 2 decades.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like say the same, like the N-word or things that back in the days, like we used to do, and now it's like, oh my God, same way black, for example, will stop. And then apart from just the term black, but we also talked about how everything is gonna just melt and we're gonna stop. Race is a social construct, and how we're gonna dismantle it. Yes, but I think while that is like super progressive, of course, yeah. But then obviously when race then, because I feel like in a way that the social concept of race is not going to exist, is going to mean that there's not going to be anything like there's going to be CEOs, and it doesn't matter, like they're going to be at the top. Like it's not going to be only white people at the top anymore. It's going to be like all sorts of people at the top.
Yeah.
And then, because I think a lot of problems in our communities is about how we don't have the freedom, or we don't get the top, or we're not able to access success. We're talking about material success more or less, yeah. But a lot of things that we as Black people try to challenge is like that. Like it often has to do with success, where we challenge that we want to have equality and these things because we want to have access to success like white people. Am I wrong or right? Because that is a lot of the issue.
Well,
often the opportunities you get to have a better life.
Yeah.
And that better life usually has to do with financial gain.
Yeah.
Because people don't, like, even though success is subjective, but most of the times when we do challenge these things, we're like, oh, we want to have access to success and opportunities to make money, really and truly, when it boils down to it, just like white people do.
Yeah. I feel like it's not that. I feel
you think it's not that?
I feel like a lot of this dismantling of these social constructs like gender, race, XYZ, it's, in my opinion, it's going to allow us to focus on the biggest oppressor or oppressed / privileged relationship, and that is class. There is a reason why every metric, when we talk about discrimination, whether that's gender, race, sexuality, it's always based on material.
Yes, condition. That's what I try to get. Yes.
Because that is the most important. And really, the biggest disparity we always see is rich or poor.
Wealth gap, yeah.
Yeah. All of this, in my opinion, again, all of this divide in sexuality and gender and race or whatever, it's honestly a distraction. It distracts us from the true oppressed privileged category, which is rich and poor.
And this is what
this is why I think Black rich people shouldn't speak on Black issues.
And this is what I try to get at, and that's what I'm saying. Like when we dismantle race, because really and truly, and this is how kind of like, to come around, what I tried to say was that when we dismantle race, but often the reason why we dismantle these things is because of this success thing. And that what I'm worried about is just happening that, okay, we dismantled race, and then the class system and who's on top. There's going to be as much as black people as white people, but that's not going to change the fact of the wealth gap and the suffering. Just because rich and poor doesn't have a color anymore doesn't mean it makes it anyhow like right on a human basis. And that's what I'm trying to get.
But I feel like
didn't find the best. But you know what I'm trying to say? Like, that's what I'm worried about.
When we're able to focus on this massive disparity in class, you have to remember there are way more poor people than rich people.
Yeah.
And when we aren't divided by race and sexuality and gender, and we are just poor, like, it's true, 99% of us are poor, really.
99.
Honestly, 99% of us are poor, especially in comparison to the 1%.
Yeah, the average, yeah.
99% versus 1% is a lot more impactful than 20%. And this 20% here and that 20% there versus this 1%. When we're fragmented, it's a lot easier to control us. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Because now we can be against each other and we're focusing on arguing against each other while they are just like ha ha ha. Whatever.
While the system continues.
Yes.
But it's going to lead to class solidarity. And honestly, I feel like there will be some sort of violent uprising when that happens. And I feel like that's really the only way. This is quite classic Marxist theory, though.
Yeah.
Like, there will be, when there is class solidarity amongst the proletariat, there will be a violent uprising. Yeah.
But they will do everything they can with because they, the powers that be, let's say the 1%, whatever, they are well aware of that, and they'll never, like, do you think they'll be able to really, like, we would really be able to dismantle all of these like divisions we have among us and poor people, let's say? Do you think we will be, especially now? A lot
of people will have to die. A lot of people would. It's true.
Yeah.
And the 1% they'll, because this is why, honestly, the police, they just protect the interests of rich people. Ultimately, that's what they do, and they will employ the police. The government will employ the military. They'll do anything to stop that from happening. But 99% of the world is a lot of people, but I do feel like a lot of people will die.
And and I've always been like a firm believer of, and this goes back a little bit to the ignorance of what we were talking about before, but at the end of the day, a cause is only a real cause if people are willing to die for it. We can talk and create content about what's right and what's moral and what's not, the same way I was talking about morality and chicken wings, but I still ate them. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, and at least to be saying, at least to see it is at least a little bit of a, like, at least I say it. But if you really have a cause and you're not willing to put an absolute action to that,
it will just continue.
It will just continue. And then also, I think what they're really smart with in the West as well is they keep us comfortable enough. Just literally just enough to not lose our shit.
Yeah. But I feel like that is...
You think we're going to lose our shit soon?
I feel like we're going to lose our shit.
I mean, I'm losing my shit, but I need more people to lose their shit. Yeah. We all need to lose our shit, collectively, like ASAP.
But we're not going to collectively lose our shit on one topic when we're talking about this and we're talking about that.
Yeah. Focusing if people like want to have same-sex relationships. That's the problem. You really so worried about whether two men want to have sex with each other in the bedroom rather than such a big picture.
Yeah, and honestly,
actual, like, why do we care so much?
I really don't want to get into
let's not.
Because I have so much to say about it.
Let's not.
But there is a reason why there is some sort of like culture war. The culture war that like people like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, all of these people that they're stoking, it's for a reason. If I'm angry at this person, I'm not going to be angry because I'm angry in general because I have to work 50 hours a week. I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
There is it's called ambient anger. There's just vague anger.
Yeah.
Now these people,
and now you have men and women, you have all these, like, Andrew Tate and everybody,
Yeah.
like now men and women against each other. But like we said, it's a lot about money and whether man can provide and how much. And really and truly, the issue is the money. It's not
no,
men
it's
and
not the
women.
gender. This is what I'm saying. It's not the gender.
Yeah.
It's not the sexuality.
Yeah.
I'm angry really because I'm always working.
Yes.
And I don't have to, and I don't get time to see my family. I don't get to explore my own interests and actually self-actualize.
Yeah.
So there's, as I said, ambient anger. Now, what these guys do is tell you where to direct that anger.
Yeah.
Instead of directing it at your boss and your boss's boss and the rich people, direct it at this immigrant who has no power. Direct it at this gay guy. Direct it at this woman. Direct it at this black guy, as opposed to really focusing on what the issue is. It's true.
It's elite.
And do you think these immigrants who are trying to cross the border, they're the elites who are making you work every single day for 10 hours? Or do you think it's this guy who's telling you that this guy's the problem? This is I gotta go.
Yeah, let's leave it because it's actually so sad. Anyways, yeah.
I could honestly speak about this for hours, and I'm even getting like